Hi guys, welcome to Ashish Academy again. Now we are just going to discuss about some of the features and the overview of that AngularJS. We already had a discussion about the advantages and the introduction of the AngularJS and the different approach which is AngularJS has taken over that all other JS JavaScript libraries in the frameworks. That is we already discussed. Now we are just going to discuss there are some advantages and also basically the problems which we have overcome through this AngularJS now. So basically, complete client-side solutions. So what is a client-side solutions? Basically, earlier days, if you really know that we are just sending a request from the browser to the server-side applications. So most of the processing, 80% processing was done at the server side, and we just do some basic validation, some basic tasks at the server side through a JavaScript because this JavaScript is taken prior or maybe processed or maybe you can say compiled by the web browsers. But here we are talking about that complete client side solution. So most of the thing will happen at the client side. So AngularJS is not a single piece in the overall puzzles of building the client side of a web application. It handles all the DOM and Ajax glue code you once wrote by hand and put it into a well-defined structures. So basically DOM and Ajax glue code. So basically Ajax, we have already know that asynchronous Java. So asynchronous JavaScript basically when we are saying that Ajax calls, maybe you heard about when we are sending that um, you can say in Ajax request through other jQuery also we send it, or maybe other ways also we can send it. So basically handling a DOM and the Ajax calls, that is a much more making a sense. That is also supported into a jQuery, but we will see how AngularJS is making much more difference. So Ajax glue code is basically it really making it in well-defined structure. So this makes AngularJS opinionated about how a CRUD operation application should be built. So in that case, we can also see how this particular CRUD operations can be built through DOM and that Ajax glue code. So you don't need to be make it or think very complicated way, but you can just see that using this AngularJS, right? So and DOM processing and the Ajax glue code, it all threes are basically putting together, and then it really making a really very developer or maybe a concrete code in the JavaScript basically. But while it is opinionated, it also tries to make sure that its opinion is just a starting point. You can easily change it. So you don't need to just go into a too much deep inside it. It's a very or maybe in the complicated way, but we are just taking up or maybe putting into in this particular manner so that you will understand why we are just using it and then how it is really solving the problem. So basically we already have seen that. So everything you need to build CRUD apps in a cohesive set: data binding, basic template, directives, form validations, routing, deep linking, reusable component, and dependency injections. So these are the major features which is really making you this AngularJS, and it makes a difference from all other libraries in the frameworks. Testability stories. So how basically writing a code is different, but how you can test the application very easily and fix the bugs. So that is also because testing of an application and fixing the bug, it is also very critical. So unit testing and end-to-end testing, mocking, and the test harnesses, it's also very important because in any applications we generally have that written that so many unit test cases or you can say different frameworks are available for testing at the server side applications. But when we talk about client side applications, so generally we don't use a framework, and that framework doesn't support that client side application testings, or basically a UI framework testing, unit testing in the UI framework basically. So that is also it. Seed application with directory layout and test script as a starting point. That is also a very important point. So that is the basically major features. That is also we will see in later. So that is the basically is very important. The complete client side solution is you can do play around and around. That is we already talk about. Data binding is very important point. Templates, directives, that is also very important point. And component lifecycle or component is very important point. So you can also play around and around in the component through the component lifecycle, and we can just do it. Form validations, routing. So routing is providing a much more rich features. Earlier days, you need to just route and write a code for that, for routing and every other things. You need to create a separate flow or maybe but here the routing is very much easy. Then reusable component, that is we already discussed. Form validations we discussed. So these are things that is also we're going to discuss in this session as well. But we are just talking about that is the basically come under this complete client side solution. Advantages: it is a very good idea to decouple a DOM manipulation from the app logic. So whenever we talk about what is a DOM, document object model, so basically everything is come under the DOM. When we create any component or maybe any other HTML tags or anything, it is basically internal, it is creating a DOM, right? So basically you need to make this your application logic and DOM separate. So basically when you are manipulating a DOM, so we need to make it is a very separate. This application logic and DOM has to be separate. This dramatically improve the testability of the code. It is really good idea to regards app testing. So basically app testing is very much easier. App testing is equal in importance to application writing. So when you are writing something code, so writing code is also have a same weightage as application testing. So writing a code, we generally focus on the just writing or developing a code, but testing is also has a same weightage. So testing difficulty in dramatically affected by the way the code is structured. So if you are writing a very jumbled code, then it is very difficult to test that code particular. And generally people don't test this UI or JavaScript code, but that is also providing a facility. So AngularJS is providing a facility. It is an excellent idea to decouple the client side of an application from the server side. So good part is earlier days there are, it depends on the architecture, and you can also choose a different technologies also to writing a particular UI or maybe client side code. Some of the people earlier days were using that ASP and the .NET framework for developing UI based, and then through connecting to backend server side application into a Java or other ways through a web services. Then also people are using that different Java based component like a JSAP or JSP is also for from the UI application development and then sending it to server side. So basically decoupling that the client side of a particular application from the client side. So it is really very good idea. So it is very helpful indeed of a framework guides developer through the entire journey of a building an app. So that is a basically simple advantage, or maybe you can say the concepts how we need to think it. So problems with the web application and the solution. So basically what are the problems we have that in earlier when we don't have a particular AngularJS is not in the market, then what was? So basically there is a concept of a callback. So what is the callback? That is we will, so registering a callback. So first thing we'll just see. So registering a callback clutters your code, making it hard to see the forest of the tree. So removing a common boilerplate code such as a callback is a good thing. It vastly reduces the amount of JavaScript code you have to do, and it makes it easier to see what your application does. So basically, let's say when you are getting some response, right? So you need to perform some task. So and then the callback is also whenever you wanted to perform, and after getting the call and then something you wanted to perform. So callback is a very important concept. So registering a callback, if you don't have this JavaScript, then you need to write some extra code for just for callback itself, but here you don't need, that is provided by the framework only. Manipulating HTML DOM programmatically, so that is very important. So many times we had a discussion for this manipulating HTML DOM. So manipulating HTML DOM programmatically, if you will write a code for manipulating HTML DOM, it is really making a much more difficult task, and you need to write some code. DOM is a cornerstone of a Ajax application. So if you are just have a Ajax based applications, and if you are just manipulating a HTML DOM, but it is a cumbersome and error prone. By declarative describing how the UI should change as your application state change, you are freed from the low level DOM manipulation task, right? So basically sometimes you have that only some particular component you need to update or change it. In that case you just get the response and something like that. So for that we don't need to refresh the entire page, but some sort of a component, we that's why we use that Ajax application. So but if you don't have that UI framework like AngularJS, you need to write so much code and other things, and it is not very error safe way. So in that case you need to use that HTML, this AngularJS, basically it will really making and help it to you for basically manipulating the DOM. So the UI should change as your application state changes. You are freed from the low level DOM manipulation task. Most applications written with the AngularJS never have to programmatically manipulate the DOM, although you can if you wanted to do. So you don't need to programmatically update the DOM is basically, right? So it is automatically taken care by the Ajax calls. So there is a two things we had discussion. First thing is registering a callback. So when we perform some task and when then callback is which we are processing, and now there are some other problems. It's basically marshalling a data to and from the UI. So basically when we are sending a data right from that UI, and when we are getting a response or maybe a response and then just attaching to a particular HTML static. So that is also basically, so CRUD operations make up the majority of Ajax application task. The flow of marshalling data from the server to an internal object to an HTML form, allowing users to modify the form, validating the form, displaying validations are returned to an internal model and then back to the server, creating a lot of boilerplate code. AngularJS, so all these things are basically easily we can eliminate it. So you can say validation the form, displaying the validations error, returning to an internal model, and then back to the server. So these are the things basically we can easily manage it, okay, in the AngularJS. So AngularJS eliminates almost all this boilerplate, leaving code that describes the overall flow of the application rather than all the implementation details. So writing a tons of initialization code just to be get started. Basically, you earlier days you need to write so much code for just an initialization, right? Typically, you need to write a lot of plumbing just to get basic hello world Ajax app working. So when you are writing Ajax, maybe if you have done any other Ajax calls, right? So in that case, basically you need to write so much code for this Ajax call and everything, but here you don't need to do. So with Angular you can just bootstrap your app easily using the services which are auto injected into your application as a choose like a dependency injection styles. This allow you to get started developing features quickly. As a bonus, you get a full control over the initialization process in automated test. So in that case, basically marshalling is very important. So in under the marshalling from the UI into the UI, these are the tasks which you can easily perform. That is validation, form validations, form submissions, then displaying validations error, return to an internal model, something. These are things where you can easily just do it. Then you don't need to write too much code to start it easily. You can just bootstrap your app easily using the services, and you can just do it auto inject into your application code. So it really makes your life very easy. Then registering a callback, manipulating a DOM component, that is also as per your need when you are creating app or applications, so easily you can just use, so you can play around and around very easily. So it's really making your life very easy. So these are four advantages which we are talking about. Now we are talking about features, which we are just in these sessions we had a discussion about all these. So now you will see that actually the features is, so two-way data binding. So AngularJS facilitates faster and easier data binding with, so basically two ways data binding. So AngularJS facilitates faster and easier data binding. What is the data binding? So basically how you are attaching your model or maybe a data which is coming from in the form of JSON or in the form of X or any form, and then how you are attaching that data into your HTML components. Like if you wanted to display some of the data in the form of table, or maybe in the form of some links or any things like that, or if you wanted to display some details, how you will attach it. So in the data binding, which doesn't require a developer to intervene at all, so everything will be done in very easy way. So if you are doing some changes in UI, it will be automatically reflected in your data model. When you are doing some change into a data model, it will be reflecting to your HTML code. That is basically come under the two ways. It ensures that changes made to a view are instantly displayed in the model and vice versa. That is a very important point. Two-way data binding. DOM manipulations, unlike the other popular JavaScript, AngularJS conveniently relieves the developer of actively manipulating a DOM, document object model, all thanks to its two-ways data binding. So basically data manipulations also very much closely related to data binding, data manipulations. It means that developer saves the time and effort to a code, translate and update the DOM. So basically DOM manipulations, basically when you are getting some response, you need to do some manipulation or into a DOM, right? So based on that you will do some changes like that. Very simple example I can say, just if you are just having that some kind of blog and post, so some most of the people, let's say concurrent users, are putting some post and submitting their response into a particular blog and then sending some views or reading some views, so only that particular blog will be you can say particular section will be getting updated. So in that case you can understand that every time you need to manipulate the time, adjust it, and then the data will keep coming flow from the server side and then submitting to a server. So in that case we can easily use it. Improve a server performance because it supports caching and many other processes. Angular reduces burden from the server CPUs. How? Because we shifted most of the processing and tasks from server side to a client side, so it can easily improve the server performance. It means that server performs extremely well thanks to reduce the traffic. So you also have that much more better you can say performance and the responsiveness. Basically thing is that you are majorly things you are just taking care at the client side only, so it is not taking much more traffic over that internet, right? So that's why it making life here very easy, because it's only serves the static files and reduced to a API call. So you don't need to send every time that, because we earlier days we handle that 80-90% that task or maybe the logic at the server side, but here we are just putting everything into a client side only. So that's why, so data binding, then through routing or maybe other features, so through that it is related to, so major things we perform at the client side. Faster application prototyping. So rapid prototyping is indeed a buzzword thanks to the existence of framework like Angular. In no time and by writing a significant less code, you can develop a prototype with good functionality, obtain a feedback and make changes without getting. So you can easily and faster develop that prototypes. Generally what is happening is when this UI developers or that business analysts, they need that prototype of that. So they collect that requirement from the business users and they convert that requirement and develop that prototype. How the application will look like, how the application will perform with the some dummy data. Based on that they get some approval and sign up from the business analysts, business users, and then the application development will getting started. So there is a separate team. Generally companies are hiring for developing a prototypes and it takes too much time and effort, but AngularJS makes this life very easy. And so that you can easily develop that particular prototypes and then we can perform the task. So responsiveness is a very important point and I like very much it is. There is a nothing better than arranging our outstanding end user experience, and AngularJS makes it possible by letting responsive, fast loading and seamless navigating websites and apps. So that is the responsiveness. We get a great responsive uh, it's basically in the AngularJS, and the response is really good. And because the managing how the way we managing through a directives or maybe a data binding or through there is all other features, so we get the really a great response. High testable product, so the testing of that particular product and site, it's like making life very easy. So once of the underlying aspect of AngularJS that build high testable websites and applications. So AngularJS provide a much more facility, you can easily test that particular application. It makes testing and debugging much simpler than you can imagine. Dependency injections, for example, allow various components to be isolated and mocked. So in dependency injections, so different components, we generally develop the component and the life cycles, and we can just put the code into a inside the component, and then we just play it and we can easily test it in separately. So MVVM architecture, AngularJS implements model view controller, that is we already discussed. It supports that this particular pattern, right, which lay a strong foundation on the application performance. So MVC is basically a particular pattern. If you're talking about controller, so which is generally processing a request, and view is basically nothing but the UI component. Model is basically a data model or a POJO, which is basically we use it. So earlier days, we also, this MVC patterns also we use in plain enterprise or old enterprise applications also, but it is very much supported into an AngularJS, which these divisions, the data is separated from the design and visual representations, which makes even complex web application easy to manage. So it supports that model view controller concepts, and it is really helping and structuring the code very properly so that each particular code or maybe have its own task, and we can easily structure it, and that entire framework is AngularJS is just following this particular pattern. So use of a directives. So basically directive is a very important. AngularJS makes use of a directives, keep the script and HTML page mess free and extremely organized. So directives are very much important. These allow to create independent codes. So directives are helping to create independent code by cramming together with specific function and using them repeatedly. So apart from a set of predefined, so there are some 16, 17 types of predefined, or I don't know exact the numbers, but there are predefined directives which can directly you can use it, but we can also create the directives. It allows to create independent code by cramming together the specific. The framework also allows developers to create a custom directives. The plain HTML templates. So basically you can specify or make that HTML components or HTML templates, and then you can attach this HTML templates with our JavaScript code. So the AngularJS uses a plain HTML is another amazing aspects. Going further, the templates are passed to a compiled as a DOM element and not as a string, and this particular advantages ensures better workflow. So moreover, it allows the easy manipulation, extension, and reusability of frame. So basically, you can create a different of a plain HTML templates, and you can use it multiple places. So you can, because this template HTML template concepts we already had earlier as well with other, but yes, here we have much more better support. You can segregate that code and reusable code. So you don't need to create that HTML code in each and every page. You have that HTML template created once, and then you can use whenever, and you can use that same template to design multiple pages, and you can easily manipulate, and extension is also very easy. Fast development. So basically fast development is we already removed most of the code, so everything is taken care by the framework itself. manipulations, binding, then validations and injections, HTML code, component, reusable components, directives, we have that. So many things are already available. So it makes life easy and you can just directly use it and it will reduce your 70 to 80% time, right? So the development is much more faster, and then you will get a quality code as well as you will save the time, and also you will get a much more better quality, and you can expect that much better delivery from the developers. So that is basically the advantages of a AngularJS. So I hope you got the point and the features, but we will also going to discuss in later part how we can use and we can code it and how we can design the applications. So we will going to discuss much more deeper and then develop the code. So we will cover in the some later sessions.